Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
It's a good day for us to take a break from domestic politics, farmers' protests, and look at the state of the world. Because you know what? This is the season of quick phone calls. The reason we say that is that a new administration has taken over in Washington just on the 20th of this month. That is just about a week back, and it has got down to work. And what does a new administration do, particularly in a big power like the US? They call their allies. They call their allies, one, to signal continuity, and where necessary, they also signal change. Usually, the rule is, or the principle that we follow is that democracies, when governments change there, that's the reason we prefer not to use the expression regime change for democracies, because in democracies, regime remains the same. So it's not as if the Trump regime has gone and Biden regime has come in. Trump government has gone, Biden government has come in. It's not as if UPA regime had gone and Modi regime had come in. UPA government had gone and Modi NDA government had come in. So what that implies is that democracies are consistent and they have a lot of continuity in policy. But if everything is a continuity, then politics will become irrelevant in democracies. So there has to be change as well. Otherwise, politicians will also be career bureaucrats, which they are not. So there is change, there is continuity, and we have to look at both in signals coming out of Biden's White House and Biden's Washington now. And some of these indications are available from the phone calls. So first of all, there is a hierarchy of phone calls. So you would expect the first calls to be made to allies. So these are Europe, allies, Britain, Australia, New Zealand, Japan. Those are sort of closer in our neighborhood. Those are allies. Those are treaty bound allies of the US, and we'll talk a bit more about it in a minute. These are nations whose security US is guaranteed, or where they have security alliances to protect each other mutually, because these are bilateral agreements. And then, very importantly, and these are signals, the next country to be called by top US officials now is India. So US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin has called Rajnath Singh at our end. Both of them tweeted after that saying nice things about each other. This is diplomacy. Similarly, the US National Security Advisor, the new one, Jake Sullivan, he called his Indian counterpart, that is Ajit Doval. And similarly, calls took place elsewhere as well. Importantly, another call was made not to an ally but a very important country, that is Russia, and to Putin. And there a kind of continuity was promised, which is actually a change, and I will try and describe that for you. So when you listen to or watch this episode of Cut the Clutter, I think the best thing is to imagine the world's map, because we are talking about some regions of the world. Some we are more familiar with, the Middle East, the South China Sea, the Eastern Asia region, which concerns us more intimately, but then also look at Europe and some of the others. So big changes are going to take place in many areas, while the basic American strategic direction remains the same. So there will be continuity there, but there will be change that affect individual nations and individual regions. So let's try and go over some of these. Now, if you look at the map of the world and look at Japan. Now, Japan is a country which is a treaty bound ally of the US. It's also under big pressure from the Chinese. The Chinese are claiming Senkaku Islands. These are tiny islands. These are about 5 islands and 3 coral reefs, which actually add up to not even 7 square kilometers of surface, just 7 square kilometers. But remember, there is the exclusive economic zone and territorial waters. So economic rights that just owning these tiny islands bestows upon you are enormous, and these waters are rich in hydrocarbons, other minerals, and Chinese have been bullying the Japanese. Their boats are coming, and the Chinese recently upped the ante by changing their law, by passing a law whereby the Chinese Coast Guard now can fire at ships of other nations. Now that is a clear signal for escalation. So what has Biden done in his phone call with the Japanese Prime Minister, that is Yoshihide Suga? He said that not only does America remains committed to its security agreement or treaty with Japan, that is called Treaty of Mutual Cooperation and Security between US and Japan, but he also said that US particularly remains committed to Section 5 or Article 5 of the treaty. What is Article 5? Article 5 lays down the direction in case the country is threatened by a third country. So you can read the whole treaty, but basically what it means is this treaty pays lip service to the UN, that if the UN is not able to protect country A, then country B will come to its aid. And in the phone call, what is significant is that Biden also said that this guarantee of protection for Japan will extend to Senkaku Islands. So that's a message to China. Not just that, in the phone call, another factor was underlined, that even extended deterrence will be available. What is extended deterrence? The other name for it, the simplistic or simple name for it would be the nuclear umbrella, which means that the American nuclear umbrella will be available to Japan even when it comes to Senkaku Islands. So this is again a warning to China not to escalate. It's come at a very interesting time. I told you, China passed this new law allowing its Coast Guard to fire. Obviously it's a provocation. It's also a message to Biden that look, we are here. Don't think you can ignore this situation for too long. You have no respite. You hit the ground running, which Biden has done. But the other interesting thing that's happened is that this has come at the same time as Xi Jinping's speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos, which is going on this year virtually, where he gave a lecture to the whole world, and he said the whole world has to give up ideological prejudices and shun Cold War mentality. Look who's talking. In fact, I saw a comment from somebody in international media saying this is a speech somebody should have given to Xi Jinping. On the other hand, Xi Jinping is giving this speech to the entire world. But that's the way the world is right now. So this Biden phone call to Japan, to his Japanese counterpart Yoshihide Suga, is very significant. Then there are phone calls to India, in which not only is the alliance reaffirmed, but also there is much else that's been said by all these top American officials and also by Joe Biden, which takes away any doubt that might have remained that the new administration will not be committed to the Indo-Pacific construct. Because some of the earlier speeches of Biden's before he won the election, he had talked about Asia Pacific. Even after winning the election, a couple of times he had said Asia Pacific, and suddenly there is a lot of anti-Americanism in India as well, in the commentariat, in the intellectual circles. So people said, see, you trusted the Americans, Indo-Pacific is out of the window with Trump, now you have a return to Asia Pacific. That has not happened. Biden's administration has now made it quite clear that they remain committed to Indo-Pacific. Not just that, in his phone call to his Australian counterpart, that is Australian Foreign Minister Marise Payne, Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, has said that he remains committed to Quad. And Quad is something that the Chinese government has called an evil. They've also said that Quad is an instrument of a new Cold War. It's a terrible thing. So Biden administration has again made it quite clear that they remain committed to Quad. Again, in these phone calls from Blinken and Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, they've both reasserted in phone calls to the Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam, that they remain committed to their territorial status in South China Sea, that they reject the Chinese claims over 80% of South China Sea, resource-rich South China Sea. And they say the China's maritime frontiers or boundaries remain confined to international treaties and last orders or verdicts of the international courts of justice. The Chinese should not dare to take any more or try and take any more territory in these seas. It's very important to the Philippines. Philippines is also an old ally of the Americans. So the phone calls to Philippines and Malaysia, Vietnam, those are countries which have been indirectly reassured. So that is how this picture is now building out on this side. Now turn to the other side, turn to the Middle East. So two specific actions Biden administration has taken. One, they are linked. One, they have halted for now the supply of precision guided munitions, that is basically guided bombs or guided missiles, to the Saudis. Why? Because of the concern that Saudis are using in their bombing missions over Yemen. Biden administration is committed to withdrawing support to Saudi missions in Yemen, but it's complex. At the same time, they remain committed to defending Saudi Arabia against attacks not just from the Houthis of Yemen, but also from attacks from Iran or its proxies. Saudi Arabia recently has had two missile attacks, either by Iran or by its proxies. So this is a statement that Antony Blinken made in his congressional confirmation hearings, where he said that we are committed to withdraw support to Saudi war in Yemen. At the same time, we remain committed to protecting the Saudis from these attacks. So right now, it's in that pursuit that America has halted these exports. Halting doesn't mean they've been permanently stopped. Chances are that in the course of time, after some ground rules are laid, the supplies will resume, because there is also a lot of money riding on it. Similarly, a bigger issue has arisen with UAE, United Arab Emirates. As we know, and we've talked about in a Kathak letter earlier, America, Trump administration had brokered what is called as Abraham Accords. So these were accords between two big Abrahamic faiths as they were constructed by Trump administration, under which Arab countries, particularly UAE and Saudi Arabia, but UAE in this case, was to normalize their relationship with Israel, which has happened. They are setting up embassies in each other's countries now. And as part of the deal, to sweeten the deal, they were to help UAE strengthen their defense by buying $23 billion worth of military hardware from America. That military hardware included two key things. One was 50 F-35 stealth fighters, the top of the line American fighter, top of the line fighter in the world right now, and also 18 very high-tech Reaper drones. Those were crucial. So these were kind of grease to lubricate this deal with UAE. For now, Biden administration has stopped them for review. Again, it doesn't mean that they are cancelling this, but they've stopped these for review. So these are again important pointers. In fact, I'm sharing with you a couple of stories on this from international publications, one from Wall Street Journal, one from FT, but also one that I find the most comprehensive from Michael Crowley in the New York Times, because that story also talks about how many of the Democrats are actually firmly committed to withdrawing military support to Saudis, and also there are questions about how this administration will treat Mohammed bin Salman. Now, to understand this Middle East situation, you have to look at the 900-pound gorilla outside the tent in the Middle East, and that is Iran. Saudis, UAE, etc. Who do they want protection from? Who do they have fears from? In the past, they might have said Israel, but now they've made their peace with Israel. So there is no threat from Israel. Their threat is from Iran. Now, this is a civilizational threat. This is a sectarian threat. Iran is a very powerful country. In so many ways, Iran is the most stable, long-lasting, civilizational nation in the entire Middle East. Unlike, say, Iraq, even Egypt for that matter, a country of a large size, Iran is not a country where any superpower can dream of an enforced regime change, because Iran, one, is civilizational, it's had continuity. Second, its regime is not that unpopular. Third, its clergy is the dictator There is a sectarian issues between Shias and Sunnis, and this is the Shia clergy. Iran is a Shia country. They see themselves as the leaders of the Shias, and also Iran is not your vanilla dictatorship. I will not say Iran is a hybrid democracy, but Iran is a hybrid dictatorship. So the dictatorship, the total power, the final word remains with the Shia clergy at QOM, and such a pity that Ayatollah Khamenei's Twitter account has just been blocked by Twitter. I mean, a country, the irony, it's an aside, irony, a country that does not allow Twitter, like China, its supreme leader uses Twitter to say his stuff, and now Twitter has banned him, but that's an aside. So Iran is a country with which Biden actually is committed to resuming negotiations and hopefully hopes to bring back JCPOA, that is a joint plan of action to limit Iran's nuclearization, and in the process lifting some sanctions and things. So that process is going to start. So it's important for Biden also to give a signal to Saudis, UAEs, etc., that unlike what they were doing with Trump, they were able to run Trump's policy, and they were able to influence or manipulate Trump's policy on the Middle East to their benefit by demonizing Iran even more, because Trump had taken a special shine to Iran because he had withdrawn from JCPOA, etc. So Trump saw Iran as an enemy. As long as Trump saw Iran only as an enemy with which no negotiations were possible, and UAE, Saudi Arabia, other Arab countries were the enemies or adversaries of Iran, until then the Middle East was completely polarized, and America did not have a freedom of action or autonomy over its policy. Now, by equivocating a little bit over Trump's old policy towards these Arab allies, Biden is creating space for himself to be able to make progress with Iran, and that is also a message to Israel, that America is not an ally with you against a common enemy or against some new evil empire, that is Iran. So America has other bigger concerns than Iran right now, and that concern at this point seems to be China. So let's not get caught in the Iran quagmire. Try and bring Iran back in the tent. So these are the changes that are taking place in the key regions important for us. Changes or continuity, these are the signals that are emerging. There are things happening elsewhere. For example, Biden administration may not be soft on Venezuela, but certainly will not be as hostile to Venezuela as Trump administration was. So those sanctions may be lightened a little bit, or maybe more than a little bit. Similarly, you see now some new murmurs in Europe. There is a speech by Angela Merkel where she is actually suggesting that Europe should remain non-aligned, tatastha, between America and China, should not take sides. That again will be something that will be fascinating to watch as it unfolds. Let us see how Europe handles that, how Biden handles that, and how Britain breaking away from Europe influences that decision. But I'll tell you what, one implication all this has for India is that it may just ease up India's oil import situation, because if sanctions are lifted even partly or conditionally over Iran and Venezuela, India is the country that stands to benefit greatly. In fact, even today we have a story from Bloomberg which I will share with you that says that Reliance already is beginning talks with Venezuela and with contacts in Washington to see if it can resume importing crude from Venezuela. Venezuelan crude is particularly heavy, not of great quality, and every refinery in the world cannot distill that crude, whereas Reliance's refineries in Jamnagar plus some other Indian refineries can do it.